A key event on China's political calendar gets underway this week, the Two Sessions, a meeting between the country's highest governing bodies. It's an opportunity for politicians, representatives and constituencies from around the country to discuss and deliberate key issues in China, both domestic and international. Now, I've had the chance to report on this event and see firsthand how China's political machinery works. Well, I'm not alone in that department. My colleague Robert Nagila has also covered the Two Sessions and joins me now. Robert, when you think back to your experience of reporting on the Two Sessions, what comes to mind?
Well, Lindy, I was among one of the first journalists to be invited to cover this important event. Now, for me, one of the biggest takeaways that I took was the organization of the entire event. You're literally talking about thousands of people in attendance, from delegates, political representatives, us journalists, members of the diplomatic corps and security. And it is a logistical nightmare, not just ensuring that everybody is where they're supposed to be, but ensuring the movement as well. And that organization goes on inside the building as well, the Great Hall where this event takes place. It has to be like clockwork. They have to ensure that everything moves like clockwork so that the whole event is on time as well.
Indeed. And you mentioned, of course, that you were among the first cohorts of journalists to attend this event. You know, by the time others, such as myself, would have visited, there would have been a number of African journalists in attendance reporting back to their home countries on developments there. And I think that's a sign of the extent to which the event actually is of significance to Africa. I mean, I remember that issues like the Belt and Road Initiative were on the agenda, and other issues concerning Africa, of course. But it does raise the question of, you know, to what extent does what happens in the Two Sessions actually inform the relationship between China and Africa?
Well, the Two Sessions is where China reveals its agenda to the rest of the world. It is here that China sets its policies on trade, the economy, diplomacy and other issues, not just for domestic consumption, but for the international stage as well, which is very, very important. And through special purpose vehicles like what you've just mentioned, the Belt and Road Initiative and the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, these policies are then pursued.
I mean, it does sort of suggest then that the seed is planted at the Two Sessions for projects like this. I mean, we're standing on the Nairobi Expressway that is both financed and constructed by China. And of course, I mean, it's still under construction at the moment, but one can already see that it is going to transform the city of Nairobi.
Absolutely, and projects like this you find across the entire continent. And it is through those special purpose vehicles that Africa's infrastructure has been improved greatly to international standards. Which brings me to the next one, which is, what are some of the takeaways from the Two Sessions for the African continent? You
know, you mentioned something earlier that, of course, there are thousands of people attending this event, upwards of 3,000. And I remember seeing them all streaming into the Great Hall of the People. And I became aware of people dressed in really beautiful costumes. I mean, really beautiful traditional outfits. And what that suggested to me is that there is a key level of representation that is a part of the Two Sessions, in that ethnic minorities are represented and special interest groups such as those, you know, looking at women's rights or the environment. So that was something that I would say was a key takeaway for me, representation within the Chinese political system. But in addition to that, I was also aware of the elements of accountability that exist within the Chinese political system. I mean, the Two Sessions, one of the key events on the agenda is the premier of the country delivering the government work reports. Yeah, I mean, you'd recall that it is essentially a report card on how the country has performed in the year that has passed and a roadmap for how they intend to pursue particular policies in the year ahead. And of course, that document is then given to all the different groups, all the different delegates, and they're able to digest that, you know, the content of that material, as well as deliberate on some of the key issues that will be pursued in the year ahead.
Absolutely, Lindy. And on the back of the Premier's speech is the question and answer session between journalists and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, which is something I particularly look forward to. Now, the Two Sessions is the most important event in China's political calendar. Stay tuned to CGTN for a comprehensive coverage.